far from Emerson. In recent weeks, there's been an increase in patrols, along with drones and aircraft using heat sensors to find people. RCMP Sergeant Lance Goldreau heads up the Border Service Enforcement Team. He says they worked with U.S. officials to find the men.
U.S. Border Patrol had notified us of 6 persons that were walking toward the Canadian border. Border Enforcement Team responded accordingly. And upon approach to the 6 migrants, one had surrendered immediately. 5 of them had fled into the wooded area just behind me.
Goldreau says in these cold conditions, a person's body heat is easy to detect. He says the men were from Chad, Sudan, Jordan, and one from Europe. None were injured, and they were turned over to Canada Border Services. Winnipeg Mayor Scott Gillingham has filled a vacancy in his inner circle. The newest member of Executive Policy Committee is one of the longest serving members of City Council. The CBC's Bartley Kivas reports.
Minarski Councillor Ross Eady is the newest member of EPC. He replaces Councillor Sherry Rowlands of Fort Rouge, East Fort Garry, who resigned from the committee on Tuesday, claiming there's too much secrecy at City Hall. Eady was first elected to council in 2010. The Labour-affiliated councillor is the new chair of Council's Water, Waste and Environment Committee. Evan Duncan, the councillor for Charleswood, Tuxedo Westwood, moves over from Water and Waste to chair Property and Development. That was Rowland's role before she resigned. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
U.S. President Donald Trump says America doesn't need anything from Canada. Speaking virtually to a panel at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Trump complained about U.S. trade deficits with other countries, including Canada, and repeated his threat to impose import tariffs. Caroline Malone has the story.
US President Trump has promised the lowest tax rates to businesses of the world, enticing them to come and make their products in America. But if they don't, he says, it will cost them. Trump says it's not fair the US has an up to $250 billion deficit with Canada, and that he's looking for the US to make its own cars and source lumber rather than relying on its northern neighbour.
We have a tremendous deficit with Canada. We're not going to have that anymore. We can't do it. I don't know if it's good for them. As you probably know, I say you can always become a state. And if you're a state, we won't have a deficit. We won't have to tariff you.
The president says the US has the largest oil and gas reserves of the world and is going to use them, and wants to see OPEC lower their prices, which he sees as being critical to end the Russia-Ukraine war. Caroline Malone for CBC News, Washington.
Meanwhile, NATO's new Secretary General was asked about Trump's call for peace talks on Ukraine. Mark Rutte says it would be dependent on the terms.
If we get a bad deal, it would only mean that we will see the president of Russia high-fiving with the leaders of North Korea, Iran and China. And we cannot accept that. That would be geopolitically a big mistake. It has to be sustainable. And for it to be sustainable, we have to make sure that Putin will never, ever, ever again try to get a square kilometer of Ukraine in the future.
In the meantime, Rutte is urging all NATO members to increase their defense spending as the alliance faces a number of crises. A new RBC report says Canadians are still struggling financially, despite inflation returning to the Bank of Canada's 2% target. About half of the roughly 1,500 Canadians polled say they are spending all of their income on essentials. About 47% say they've had to dip into their emergency fund or retirement savings. And finally, this year's Oscar nominations have been released, and a Canadian is in the running in the Best Picture category.
Dune Part 2, Mary Parent, Cale Boyder, Tanya Lapointe, and Denis Villeneuve, producers.
Quebec's Denis Villeneuve is a producer and the director of Dune Part 2, which has 5 nominations in total. Overall, Emilia Perez leads the field with 13. Wicked and The Brutalist are next with 10 apiece. As for other Canadians in the running, Shawetmak filmmaker Julian Brave Noisecat and Toronto journalist Emily Cassie are nominated for Best Documentary Feature for their film Sugarcane. All this year's nominees are on our website, with Oscar night set for March 2nd. A high of minus 15 in Winnipeg, and we could see light snow at times. In Brandon, a chance of light snow, a high of minus 12. Dauphin, a high of minus 10 with a chance of light snow. In Flin Flon, periods of snow, a high around minus 7. Thompson, light snow at times, a high of minus 13. And on the Bay, in Churchill, a high of minus 13 with mainly sunny skies. You're listening to CBC.
Good afternoon, Manitoba. You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk. Good to be with you. Happy Thursday. Well, coming up on the show, yet another reason to love dogs. A Manitoba scientist has found out that they can detect oil spills under ice. He's going to join us to tell us how he figured that out. That's coming up at 12:15. That's also inspired our call-in conversation today. We want to hear all about your dog, what makes them so special. We want to hear your stories about your canine friends, past and present. We're opening up the phone lines after 12:30. We're also going to have a canine in studio, and that's going to be really cute. That's all coming up here on Radio Noon. But up first here on Radio Noon, a notorious stretch of single-lane highway will soon get passing lanes. By fall 2026, an over 50-kilometer stretch of Highway 8 between Winnipeg and Gimli will have passing lanes in various spots. And that's great news for Gimli resident Terry Nicholson, who started a petition this summer to get passing lanes put in. And she joins us now. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
So for those who don't drive that stretch of highway often, what concerns do you have about the highway that led you to start this petition?
Well, we're part of the Interlake tourism area, and because we're along Lake Winnipeg, we get a lot of traffic, especially in the summer and on weekends. And what generally happens is there'll be somebody who's pulling a trailer or something that's has to go below the speed limit, and traffic will get backed up behind that. And then some person that's 12th in the row decides that they can't wait anymore, and they'll pull out to pass. And of course they get halfway and there's oncoming traffic. So then they have to, everyone that's in the line has to slam their brakes on so this person can get back in. And if you happen to not be paying attention right when that person is pulling back in, you could be ending up having to hit the ditch. And I often think that, oh my God, if somebody ever had to do that and they had a baby in the car or little kids or something, it's very, very treacherous. People just don't seem to have very much patience with waiting anymore.
Have you seen any close calls like that yourself, or been part of any?
Many. And I think everybody who drives that highway could tell you the same thing. And that's really what led me to start the petition. Was everybody complains about it online on our Facebook groups. And I was reading this before the August long weekend, which is our busiest weekend of the year. And I thought, rather than just be keyboard warriors, why don't we be proactive? And so that's when I started the online petition.
So you started this petition August 2024. It got over 1,100 signatures, and we actually reached out to the province about this to confirm that this is happening, and also asked about the petition itself and what influence it might have had. And we heard from the province. It says, quote, addition of passing lanes predates the petition and was made as part of the department's regular process while assessing traffic volumes and safety priorities. So what do you make of the province's response to that this was actually in the works before you even started the petition?
I think that's great. I know they had been talking about it, but I can remember them talking about twinning this highway when I was a teenager, which is several decades ago now. So I think this just helps hold their feet to the fire to make sure that it actually gets done this time.
And I actually understand you didn't just find out necessarily through the news or just from perusing a government website. You actually got a direct email from maybe someone you might not expect to get it from. Can you tell me a little bit how you found out that this was actually going to be happening, these passing lanes coming in?
Yes, I received an email from Minister Naylor, the Minister of Transportation, last Friday. So that was very exciting, and I shared it with all the online groups where I had posted the petition so that everybody knows what her response was, and we're all very pleased to hear it.
Yeah, what went through your mind when you first kind of opened up that email and saw that this was actually going to be happening?
Well, I was very glad because in addition to doing the online petition, I had lobbied our MLA to present a petition in the legislative, in the House. And there's quite a process that goes along with having to do that. You have to get physical signatures, and there's certain protocol that has to be followed. So that didn't get done until October. So I wasn't just sure if anything was going to come of it at all. So I was very, very pleased to get that response.
So now this construction, it's slated to start in 2025 this summer, and then it's supposed to be done ideally, I think they're hoping for fall 2026. So between now and then, the highway will still be what it is, and there might be some construction going on. What would you like to see to make the highway safer? Is there anything that could be done in the meantime?
Well, having the RCMP patrol it more, like I very, very seldom ever see an RCMP vehicle when I'm driving that highway. So maybe if they have construction lanes, that, and they usually put the signs that if you're speeding in a construction lane, that there's an extra penalty for that. So hopefully everybody will be a little patient, knowing that the results of it will be, a much safer highway for all of us.
And once these passing lanes are in, do you think that'll solve the safety concerns that you have, or do you think more could be done eventually to make it safer?
I think it's a good start. I used to live in Western Manitoba for many, many years and drove Highway 16, and it was similar. There would be slow traffic on summer weekends going up to Riding Mountain National Park, and it would be very similar. And now they have a whole series of passing lanes in there, and it's a completely different drive now.
Terry, thanks so much for taking some time to chat with us this afternoon, and all the best.
Thank you very much.
Gimli. And if you're wondering exactly where on the highway those passing lanes are going, it's going to be on Highway 8 between Highway 67 and Provincial Road 231. And construction is slated to begin this summer, and it's expected to be completed by fall 2026.
Would you answer a call for a reality TV show if you weren't allowed to ask what the show was about?
If you want to be on the show, stop asking that question and get on with the auditions.
I might be selling you my kidney. I don't know what it is.
But in return, they promised you the adventure of a lifetime.
I was thinking. I didn't want to die.
Split Screen Thrill Seekers is a new 6-part series from Love and Radio, Vespucci, and CBC.
Split Screen Thrill Seekers. Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
12:13 right now. You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1. And stay tuned, because just ahead in a couple minutes here, we're going to be talking about a very fascinating experiment that ended up learning that dogs can detect oil spills under ice. And that experiment was done by a Manitoban in the Experimental Lakes area. We're going to get the details on that coming up just right away here. But first, let's take a look at your current conditions across the province. Right now in Brandon, you're experiencing some light snow and actually some drifting snow as well. It's minus 13. Churchill at the airport, partly cloudy. You're minus 14 right now. Dauphin, light snow, minus 13 for you, as well as some light snow in Flin Flon. You're sitting at minus 12. Up in Gillam, minus 16 with some light snow. Island Lake, cloudy at minus 20 right now. And you're actually tied with Kleefeld for the cold spot in the province. Kleefeld is also at minus 20. Our hot spot right now is Melita. Right now in Norway House, there's some light snow, minus 15. Portage at the airport, light snow, minus 17. To Dooley Lake, sunny and minus 16 right now. Thompson, light snow, minus 14. And Winnipeg at the Forks, cloudy, minus 16. Minus 16. Well, any dog lover out there knows that dogs do a lot. They warm our hearts, they offer us companionship, and as one Manitoba researcher recently learned, they can also detect oil spills under lake ice. Vince Pallas is head research scientist with the Manitoba-based International Institute for Sustainable Development, which runs the Experimental Lakes area. Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. So how did you learn that dogs can detect oil spills under lake ice?
Well, to be clear, this is the first time we've ever tried it, but we knew that dogs had the ability to detect oil. Paul Bunker, who works for or who owns Chiron Canine dog training, knew that he could train a dog to detect oil and discern it from different types of oil. And we also knew that he could detect, or he could get the dogs to detect the oil in water. but we didn't know to sort of what depths those dogs could detect the oil, and we didn't know whether they could detect it under the ice, which is something that we just discovered last week.
Wow. And how did you do that? Like, how did that experiment work?
So that experiment was, like a lot of experiments, a lot of grunt work to begin with. So we cut 30 holes in the ice that were 1 meter by 1 meter. We allowed them to freeze over, and then we put the oil under the ice. It's buoyant oil, so we knew it wasn't going to go anywhere. It would stay in the holes that we cut. And then we cut 9 holes for each type of oil that we were testing, and only 3 of those holes actually had oil in them. So then we performed what we call a blinded study, so that neither the trainer nor the dog knew where that oil was. And we let them sort of do their search. Paul has the dog search in a sort of zigzag pattern. And the dogs never alerted. And an alert means the dog sort of sniffs around that hole more intently, does a little bit of digging, and then sits down. And that sit down is what we call an alert. The dogs never alerted on a place where there was no oil, and 100% of the time found where there was the oil.
Wow.
So in this case, we're working with diesel and another type of light oil called condensate that they mix with bitumen in order to make it thinner, and they can pump it through pipelines.
And as a scientist, what was that like for you to witness that and get that conclusive of a result?
I mean, it's almost unbelievable, right? It's remarkable that oil that's underneath, 2.5 to 3 inches of ice, and is completely, there's no visual cues by that time. By the time the dog was looking for the oil, it was underneath, the 2.5 to 3 inches of ice and 5 inches of snow. And for that dog never to sort of alert on any other areas where there wasn't oil, and to find it 100% of the time. Those 9 holes, I should have mentioned, were spread over an area of about 400 meters. So it's not a small area to search. And for the dog to zone in, to the meter of where the oil was incredible.
So what does this mean now going forward for if there is an oil spill on a freshwater lake?
This study was funded by the Great Lakes Center of Expertise, and that's run by the U.S. Coast Guard. And their interest in it is because there are pipelines that run underneath the surface of the Great Lakes. In fact, there's one underneath the Straits of Mackinac. If there's ever a breach there, if there's ever an oil spill, of course, there's a chance that the oil will find its way underneath ice. And cleaning up the oil, the biggest part of that is really finding it first. And you need to find it quickly, because oil changes as it's exposed to the environment. Of course, it can dissipate. It can, parts of it can dissolve in the water column. But if it's heavy oil, it can even sink. And it sinks within, sort of 2 weeks. Once it sinks to the bottom, very difficult to find, very difficult to remove. So speed is of the essence. And so having a technique, a dog who can sniff and cover large areas in a very short time.
So now, could this technically mean that, the companies might have like a dog ready to go at any point to get on site if something like this happens?
They probably could enlist companies that would have dogs available. I think that's the way Paul's business works, is he has some dogs available that are, ready to be deployed to instances like this. Paul has trained specific types of dogs that are able to discern between types of oil. So if you're looking for fresh oil versus oil that's been spilled previously, some of these dogs can cue in on the fresh oil, which is, a pretty discerning olfactory sense.
And now that this experiment was a success, are there other experiments you plan to do with Poppy and Paul?
Yeah, one of the things that we found was, Poppy was able to find diesel 100% of the time. She was able to find condensate, again, that lighter weight oil that's mixed with bitumen. So what's the threshold of different types of oil that the dog can detect, a generalist like Poppy? And what's the limitation in terms of what the dog can detect? But how small can you go? How small of an area can the dog detect? And how low in volatility can the dog detect?
Well, Vince, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. Really appreciate you sharing the results of this super fascinating research.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're really excited about it too.
Vince Pallas is head research scientist with the Manitoba-based International Institute for Sustainable Development, which runs the experimental lakes area in northwestern Ontario. We should also note that all the oils that are used by the IASD for testing purposes are completely removed from the experimental lakes area after the experiments are formed. It's actually mandated as part of the deal for the experimental lakes area. Coming up on our call-in conversation, we'll continue our chat about the amazing things dogs can do. We actually have a dog standing by that's going to join us in studio. Ronald is here, and he is a big, beautiful, we're pretty sure he's mostly a shepherd, but there's probably something else in there, and he is up for adoption. He's got his own story, and we want to hear your stories as well. Share your stories about dogs, about the impact a dog has made on your life, and you know what you love about your dog, what's making your dog special. Write this number down. We're not going to open up the lines just yet, but if you do want to call, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. We're going to open up the phone lines right around 12:35. We want to hear your dog stories, your happy dog stories. But time now, we're going to make a bit of a pivot here to talk about words. It's time now for our Word Nerd column. And this week's word is warm and hot, but also chilled and bubbly. Here's Elizabeth Withy with the story of toast.
How do we ring in the new year? Maybe with a countdown and a kiss and a toast. And that's one definition of the word toast. Glasses raised and sips taken in honor of someone or something. But wait, there's also toast, the stuff we eat for breakfast and possibly lunch and maybe even supper.
Toast. A little piece of toast. Because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the side.
That toast comes from Old French, toaster, meaning grill, roast, or burn. And before that, Latin, torrere, meaning parch, as in dry out. Which makes sense when you think toast is not only warm, browned bread, but also dried out bread, made even drier still via toaster.
I like honey on my toast, honey on my toast. When the toast pops up, I spread it on until all of the honey's gone. I like honey.
It also relates to toasty, you know, the word for something warm. And maybe even the phrase, you're toast, meaning you're finished, you're cooked, you're a goner. That came along in the 1980s, and some say it could be a reference to a computer circuit meltdown.
Give a toast to that food, yeah. You go, let you go. You can't let you no. Let's give a toast.
But why do we say toast when we clink our pint glasses together? How did that happen?
May I propose a toast?
May I propose a toast?
Will you join me in a good luck toast before you head out?
Here is what I know. Way back when, in the 1600s, there were plenty of tavern bevies with fruit and even chunks of toast. Yes, actual toast, flavored with spices to enhance the drink. I'm imagining a boozy punch with really soggy croutons. And from this grew the notion of proposing a toast to someone's health. Though originally, the ones being toasted were beautiful, beloved women, whose mere existence apparently added proverbial zip to whatever said toasters were drinking.
So here's a toast to Newfoundland, wherever I may be.
For CBC Radio, I'm Elizabeth Withy.
The hills, the saucy breezes blow.
Well, so if there is a word you're wondering about, I actually forgot how many definitions toast really has. Pretty versatile word overall. You can drop Elizabeth a line, email her, a wordnerd@cbc.ca.
Ice on the rocks as a dessert.
Yummy.
Made into sculptures. Healing injuries.
Ouch.
A Batman villain.
The Iceman cometh.
Ice, baby.
But our obsession with ice as a product is only 200 years old. how ice transformed our lives on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
12:26 right now on Radio Noon. And if you're looking for something to do in Winnipeg tonight, you may consider heading down to Park Alleys in South Osborne. Sean Burns and the Lost Country Band have had a month-long residency at the Alleys, and tonight is the last show. Here's his latest single. This is Sean Burns and the Lost Country Band with Someday Soon.
There's a young man that I know, just turned 21. Comes from down in southern Colorado, just out of the service, is looking for his fun someday soon. Gone with him someday soon. My parents cannot stand him, 'cause he rides the rodeo. They say he's not your kind, he'll leave you crying. But I would follow him right down the roughest road to hoe someday soon. Go with him someday soon. When it comes to call, my pa ain't got a good word to say. Guess it's 'cause it's just as wild in his younger days. Blow your blue northern, blow his love to me. He's riding in tonight from California, loves his download rodeo as much as he loves me. Someday soon, go with him someday soon.
That's Sean Burns and the Lost Country Band. They're playing tonight, the Park Alleys, their last show of their month-long residency. Well, still to come here on Radio Noon, if you hear some chattering in the background, it's our new friend Ronald. It's our new friend Ronald, and he is a beautiful shepherd mix, and he's up for adoption. And he's here because we're going to be opening up the phone lines to talk about your dogs. Tell us your dog stories. We're going to hear Ronald's stories, and we want to hear yours. 204-780-0893. We're opening up the phone lines after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. At 12:30, we're at minus 16 with cloudy skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. 6 men who crossed illegally into Manitoba from the United States were found thanks to new technology at the border. They were apprehended on Tuesday in the bush near Emerson. In recent weeks, heat-detecting drones and planes have been deployed there. RCMP team lead Sergeant Lance Goldow says one of the men was caught right away, but the other 5 ran into a wooded area, but the heat-seeking tech tracked them down.
It guided the members exactly where, pretty hard to hide in winter when you can see exactly where your heat is. Another important factor to comment on as well is when we talk about contraband and other items that may be brought into Canada with the migrants, they were able to also pinpoint baggage that had been dropped along the way.
Goldau says the men were from Chad, Sudan, Jordan, and a European country. He says none were injured and they were turned over to Canada Border Service agents. Winnipeg Mayor Scott Gillingham has shuffled some city councillors around. He had to fill a vacancy on his cabinet after Councillor Sherry Rowlands resigned from his Executive Policy Committee. Menarski councillor Ross Eady is the newest member of EPC now. Eady was first elected to council in 2010. And Evan Duncan, the councillor for Charleswood, Tuxedo Westwood, moves over from Water and Waste to chair Property and Development. That was Rowlands' role before her resignation. And in international news, appearing via video link, U.S. President Donald Trump addressed the delegates today at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, and he gave no indication that he's backing away from his threat to issue tariffs on countries like Canada.
If you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff, differing amounts, but a tariff which will direct hundreds of billions of dollars and even trillions of dollars into our treasury to strengthen our economy and pay down debt.
And Trump touched on a number of other issues, including the ongoing war in Ukraine. He insists it can be brought to an end if oil prices go down.
I'm also going to ask Saudi Arabia and OPEC to bring down the cost of oil. You got to bring it down, which, frankly, I'm surprised they didn't do before the election. That didn't show a lot of love by them not doing it. I was a little surprised by that. If the price came down, the Russia-Ukraine war would end immediately. Right now, the price is high enough that war will continue. You got to bring down the oil price. You got to end that war.
Trump also told the delegates that he will demand that all NATO member countries increase their defense spending to 5% of GDP, up from the current 2%. And that's your CBC News from Winnipeg.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Back soon.
That is Matt Humphrey at our CBC News desk. And we are about to open up the phone lines. If you want to call now, you can. Share us a story about your dog. We have Randall here in studio. He's a total sweetie pie. He's a shepherd, and he's joined by his handlers here with the City of Winnipeg Animal Services, and he's got a vest on that says "Adopt Me," and he is a good boy. I can tell you that much. He's a total sweetie. We're going to hear his story. We want to hear your stories too. 204-780-0893. 204-780-0893. Tell us about your dog. Do you have a story about an impact a dog has had on your life? Because, man, those animals are special. But right now, though, Riley Lachuk joins us in studio as well to give us, let us know whether it's good dog walking weather out there or not.
Well, minus 16 in the city right now.
Okay.
So close to seasonal.
Dog doesn't care, but you
I
do.
know.
Yeah.
Not the minus 30 temperatures that we saw earlier. But we are looking at temperatures actually closer to seasonal by the time we get later into the day today. So hovering around minus 16 in Winnipeg through the afternoon. We've seen cloud kind of ebbing and flowing. Expect that through the afternoon hours today. A mix of sun and clouds. A little bit more substantial cloud into northern parts of the province. This ahead of a weak area of instability that will move really province-wide as we get overnight tonight into Friday morning, bringing us a few flurries overnight into the morning hours. Really not looking at much in the way of accumulation. I'm thinking maybe a couple of centimeters by the time we get to the morning hours tomorrow. And really just some scattered flurries really throughout the day, throughout the afternoon tomorrow, even lasting into the morning hours on Saturday. So we are looking at a marked improvement in our weather, although we do get a few flurries to the day tomorrow, but temperatures jumping up above seasonal for this time of the year. I'm thinking maybe a couple centimeters generally across southern Manitoba. Maybe locally in parts of the north you get 4 or 5 centimeters. But we are looking at, I'm calling it a dusting as we get through the overnight hours tonight. High temperatures today. Most of these we actually won't hit until we get until like 11, 12 overnight tonight. So we're looking at our highs being later in the day today. Minus 9s by the time we get to the late evening for places like Verdun, Melita, minus 11 in Brandon. Afternoon temperature around minus 16 in Winnipeg, but up to minus 12 by the time we get late tonight. Minus 4 tomorrow, minus 9 for Saturday, minus 5 for Sunday, and minus 2 on the way for Monday. So we're remaining well above seasonal as we get into next week as well. Maybe a few flurries coming our way once again by the time we get to Tuesday.
Thank you very much, Riley. So if I sound distracted, Ronald's here. He's so cute. I was trying to maybe get him to come on my lap, even though he's a large.
I can see you're a little occupied over there.
In a perfect world, he'd be sitting on my lap right now, even though he's a large shepherd. I don't even care. Just bring him on. Just give me those dog cuddles. Thank you very much, Riley.
You're welcome.
That is Riley Lachuk at our CBC. He's our CBC weather specialist. And yes, it is now time for our call-in conversation. Earlier this hour, we heard about dogs that can sniff out oil spills earlier on the program. And we know dogs have unique skills and qualities, and maybe your dog can't detect harmful oil leaks, but your furry friend, past or present, likely has some other great qualities you'd like to share with us. So what do you love about your dog? What makes your dog so special? Do you have a story about an impact a dog has had on your life? Call us. Our number 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. You can also text us 204-588-7355. That's 204-588-7355. Tell us about that special dog in your life, past or present. And joining me now in studio, of course, we do have Ronald the dog, but also we have Jennifer Harrower, the acting manager of Animal Services, who is a human, as well Jennifer Medicott, community relations coordinator, both with the city of Winnipeg. And with them, of course, is Ronald here to demonstrate on our YouTube live stream. If you want to go on YouTube, we're live right now if you want to see him, just how special dogs can be live and close up. And he has been an absolute sweetie pie as he's been patiently waiting to get his on-air debut. Well, I want to start with you, Jennifer Medicott. So just tell us a little bit about Ronald and his story.
So Ronald is just over a year old, but he was actually a stray, so we don't know a ton about him, and that's what happens in the city. Sometimes there's dogs running at large. Our officers pick them up. If they're not identified through tattoo or microchip, then they stay with us. So we don't know a lot about Ronald other than he's amazing and very sweet, good with other dogs, and really needs a home.
And he seems like kind of in a lot of ways an ideal candidate for adoption, right? He's a younger dog. He's super mild mannered, and he's a total sweetie pie. Is he the typical kind of dog that might come through often? I'd
say, yeah, he's pretty typical. A lot of dogs, depending on where they're coming from, have different personalities, of course, but yeah, he's very good temperament, so I would say very easily adoptable. So we don't suspect that he'll be with us for that long.
He's up on the desk right now. Do you have something to say, Ronald? I know we've been talking about you, but if you want to join the conversation, just give a bark or a sniff or something like that. Just yeah, he's right up on the mic there. There we go.
Just don't hit a button.
Yeah, Ronald's got lots to say. He does. He really does. And do you actually have a story yourself, Jennifer, about a dog?
Yeah. So I've been working in the animal advocacy space for a little over 10 years. I've got a senior dog. He's 13. And I got him when I was very naive to, animal issues that we were facing in Manitoba. So he kind of grew with me as I, worked in the animal space. And then a couple of years ago, I got my second dog, Ted. And part of the advocacy work I was doing was going to communities affected by wildfires and feeding the dogs that had to be left behind, unfortunately. So we would helicopter in, bring food and water.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that story, I was in Puckawagan. Fast forward 8 months later, I'm there again for a health check clinic, and they had 2 dogs too many. They needed a foster. So I took in Ted, and Ted has never left my house since.
Oh.
So it's kind of a full circle story. I was there during these wildfire seasons when Ted was probably likely almost just born. I didn't even know he was there. And then I come back, 8 months later, and now he's my dog.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
We already have a caller here. Shane, hi there.
Hi.
Hi. What's
Well, there's all sorts of service dogs, and they do all sorts of wonderful things. But I had a dog who basically was just a really great dog, and we used to ski drawer. That's where they pull you when you're skate skiing.
Yeah.
And one time when at the top of a very steep hill, he stopped, sat down, and would not go. When I got to the top of the hill, my heart was pounding out of my chest, like really. I think he could hear it. And he would not go until my pulse got back down, back down, and then he walked me out of the park, telling me the whole way, see your cardiologist. And I did not have a heart attack. I got stents, I got all the stuff before I even got a heart attack. And dogs are very sensitive to what's going on in your life. And some of them are like philosophers about it. They just speak to you with their eyes.
Must be nice knowing you have a companion along you that's always monitoring your vitals.
Yeah, well, he's gone. I have some more since. I've got some other great dogs. But he was very special dog.
Well, Shane, thanks for sharing your story. Really appreciate that.
Well, and I go to the dog park every day. And by the way, that's where the happiest people are.
Oh, I'm sure. Thanks a lot there, Shane. Keep those calls coming, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. Jennifer Harrow, we have two Jennifers here in studio with us, along with Ronald. Jennifer Harrower, what about you? What's your connection to dogs? What story do you have to share?
Well, I've been working with animal services for 10 years now. And about 4.5 years ago, I was minding my business, working in my office, and I hear kind of whimpers coming from the front lobby. So I decided to go have a peek in what was brought in, and there was a little whippet boxer, very underweight, kind of looking like a bag of bones, sitting there with the saddest eyes, staring at me. So I decided to get her out of the lobby. There was another dog in the lobby that was kind of scaring her, so I brought her directly into my office, and she curled up in a little ball in the corner of my office and just sat there and shaked a little, and I spent some time in cuddling. So I very gently called my husband and asked if I could bring her home just for one night, just to get her out of the kennel, because it was a very scary place, and she was just a sweet little girl. And this poor little thing never came back. And she's been ours now for about 4.5 years. And it turns out she is the biggest lover that you could get out of a dog. She just constantly needs to be touched and constantly needs to be cuddled. So she's a perfect fit.
How many dogs do you have right now at Animal Services?
15.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
And where is that in terms of capacity?
That's actually great numbers for us.
Yes.
So we're happy at this number. It means a lot of dogs can get more enrichment. We have more staff to help with that. I'd say we don't really want to push it past 25.
Yeah, 25 is our comfort zone in the shelter. The last few years, about the last 3 years, we've been sitting at quite high capacity. We've had somewhere about 48 dogs, but I believe was our highest at one point.
Wow.
So that's a lot of work on the staff, a lot of long days, and not giving the dogs all of the attention that we would like in a day. That comes more to basic care for an animal. So this last about month and a half, I'd say, we've been sitting around 20, give or take 15, 20. So it's a nice, refreshing break for the staff and for the dogs, because they're getting a lot more attention and socialization. So it's great.
Is that in line with what, because I know we have stories on about like rural humane societies, things like that, who are overrun right now. But I know that probably it sounds like at some points that was the case for you. But why do you think it is at that kind of nice, steady 15 right now? Are adoptions up? Are less dogs coming in? Are things stabilizing now? Or
I think it's pretty short term to really say what's happening. Typically, though, over winters, we do drop in levels just due to, I think, cold weather. Not as many dogs are leaving their homes for as far and as long. I'm not sure if our overcapacity issue is gone for good. Like I said, it's only been about a month. So we'll see what the spring brings, but we'll hold on to this comfort level for as long as we can, and we'll see what happens in the spring.
Jennifer M. We got Jennifer M. and Jennifer H. here. So when people come in to interact with dogs, potentially, pick a dog, what are some of the, special characteristics that they might be looking for?
Well, I would say that maybe not to judge the dog the first time you meet them at the animal shelter. They are often running at a higher stress level, so they're excited. So I would say when you're meeting a dog, maybe give them some decompression time. We often talk about the 3-3-3 rule when we adopt or do doggy dates, and just recognizing that these dogs are coming from a high stress environment and their personality will start to really shine through over a little bit of that decompression time.
And what's the 3-3-3 rule?
So that's 3 days, 3 weeks, and 3 months. You can start to see at each interval changes in their behavior because they're slowly decompressing. So sometimes it can take up to 3 months for a dog to feel really safe in a new home and a new environment. Or you could be like a dog like Ronald, who just adjust pretty good to change, but not all dogs are like that. So I would just want everyone to, be patient and understanding with these dogs. They have thoughts and feelings just like we do.
And Ronald, he's been just hanging out here for like 15 minutes now, just like loving life. He's really adaptive.
Yeah, and that's why he's here with us today, because he's a perfect dog and needs to get adopted.
He definitely needs to get adopted. I might just take him home right now if people don't. We do have a caller on the line. Hi there, Roy. Oh, Roy, are you there?
Hello.
Hi, Roy. What's your dog story?
My dog story is I lost my 15-year-old Australian Kelpie cattle dog 2 years ago. And just here since, a few months ago, as I was telling a lady on the phone before, I went to look at a piece of logging equipment because I'm logging, as we speak, north of Swan River, but I have a cattle ranch over the border in Saskatchewan. Anyways, I went to look at this piece of equipment at a Mennonite family's place, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere came this little black dog that looked almost identical to my old Kizzy. And I said, well, what's up the story? She says, well, it belonged to one of their sons, but they weren't going to be able to keep it because, or she, they weren't going to be able to keep her because their family dog kept beating her up. And she actually has a little triangular rip in her one ear, taken like a bite. Evidently, the dog bit her ear and ripped it out. So anyways, I then thought about it because we have two large German Shepherd dogs now that my wife uses for walking. And she'd said a few months ago, you should get a new dog. But under the circumstances that I have not only a ranch, but I also work in the logging business, thought, no, I think I'm going to wait till spring. But it's really strange because this little dog just took to me and they said, everybody comes in this yard. The dog doesn't pay any attention to them, but she certainly pays attention to you. So anyways, about 3 weeks later, I went back again, and I just kind of give out a whistle, and just out of nowhere, out of the bushes, comes this little dog again, flies up to me, and actually literally just launched herself right into my lap and all over my face. And my gosh, it's like 16 below out, and it wasn't quite that comfortable. But anyways, I have Elsie now, and as I was telling the lady, Elsie isn't very happy with me right now because this week, Monday, she got spayed last Monday, and I'm going to be picking her up tomorrow night when I go home from camp.
Luckily, dogs are forgiving, so I'm sure she'll...
They are, but this little dog is hilarious. She's like my new girlfriend. Honestly, she is. We have had dogs all our lives on several ranches. We've had border collies. We've had German Shepherds. My wife even brought a Yorkie home, and but it didn't last long because it's not really much made for a ranch. But this Kelpie is something else. And when she looks at you not only like my old one, I almost think she knew what you were saying to her and this one here is vocal. If you're talking to somebody, she'll run up to you and she will literally start getting in the conversation.
Well, thanks for the call there, Roy. That's lovely, and give our best to Elsie. She sounds amazing.
Yes, you're very welcome, and you guys have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too.
You too.
Keep those calls coming there, Roy. 204-780-0893. 204-780-0893. Jennifer's, both of you. I mean, that must be part of the great part of the job is seeing the connections that, like, do you notice that sometimes certain dogs connect with only certain people? Like, you notice it right away? Is there like an electricity there that you see when people come by?
One of my favorites is watching a dog being returned to its previous owner.
Oh, yeah.
So if a dog gets out of your property and comes to our facility and, the owner comes in, a day or two later to pick up their dog, watching the dog's reaction when they see the owner is always heartfelt. And there's usually some tears along the way from staff and from the owners. So that's one of my highlights.
Oh, that'd be a great feeling. I don't know about you, like when people come by, like, have you ever noticed that like connection between a dog and a human, like right away?
Yeah, it happens even with our staff. We, kind of lean towards a certain dog from time to time, and then you're kind of connected and bonded.
Oh, it must be hard to say goodbye then when they eventually get adopted or something. Like, do you have like special like kind of in-house like counseling or something like that when that happens?
Yeah, it's bittersweet sometimes, right? We want them out, but we love them too. So we've had lots of great stories over the last few months. So we're just happy when that happens.
Is there one that stands out for you? The past couple months?
Gambino.
Yeah.
He was adopted by a couple outside the city, and they just love him. They have tons of photos, Christmas photos that they've taken. And Millie, she was probably our viral sensation in December when we made a post about her. Also, a unique dog where she kind of needed some more attention, and another couple, no dogs, a young couple, and they adopted Millie, and she's doing great.
Wow.
She was with us for months.
That's great.
Yeah.
And this guy, if people are interested in adopting our good friend Ronald over here, who's currently licking my toes, and that is A-okay with me. What can people do? Like, what's the process, and who should they call? How does that all work?
Yeah, well, the best process is to come down to our facility. All adoptions have to be done in person. You can always connect through us through social media, through Facebook or Instagram. I will answer those messages if you have any questions, details. But the best thing to do would be to come to 1057 Logan during our opening hours, speak with one of our kennel assistants. They know the dogs best. They work with them daily, and we'll match you as best as we can to your lifestyle and your needs and try and find the perfect dog for you.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
I was just going to say, even if you're not ready to commit to a full-time adoption, we also have our doggy date program, which is kind of like renting a dog. You could take out a dog for an afternoon. Even with the cold weather, we have a few malls that have allowed us to bring our dogs through for kind of a day outing, or you can take the dog up to 7 days. So you can bring them home with you and kind of give a trial run if it's someone who you're interested in. So you don't have to be signing the dotted line right off the hop. You can always just kind of rent them for a few days and see how the fit is.
Okay. And Ronald here is one of 15 dogs, like you said. Are all the dogs right now up for adoption in services, or how many dogs do you have right now that are up for adoption?
Okay, let me think. I think we have 11 or 12 out of the 15 that are available.
Any other ones you want to let folks know about if they're thinking of coming by? I know all of them you do, but
there are a couple that stand out. Chuck, if you check our Facebook page, he's been mentioned quite a few times. Lots of people interested, and he really needs a home. Bo, and then Dino. Dino is just like Arnold. Loves other dogs, good with other cats, really easy adoptable. So we'd really love to see him get into a home quickly.
My favorite's Turner. He's a very, very big boy, so he's going to take a special home. But he's up for adoption as well.
Wait, was I saying his name wrong the whole time? Is Arnold?
Oh, did I say Arnold? I'm sorry. Ronald. It's Ronald.
I think I called him Randall earlier, too. I mean, really.
I called him Donald on the way, so yeah, it's okay.
Some variation of it. Okay. Oh, that's great. That's really great. And we actually are getting a text here, but it is still coming in, so I'll get to that shortly here. If you do want to give us a call, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. So earlier, right before I let you go here, in terms of the challenges that from the pandemic, there was a lot of people that got dogs put up for adoption. Would you say that challenge in terms of that from the pandemic has now waned, or is that you're still seeing that happening?
I think we're still seeing that happening, just based on our capacity numbers over the last couple of years being at the levels that they've been. And it's not just us that are experiencing it. It's the Humane Society. It's all the rescues and shelters, outside the city as well. So I think we're still working through the pandemic kind of backlash for the animals in our care. But every time we get one, we find a loving new home. So we're slowly getting over the hump, and hopefully we'll see an end in the next year or so. And of course, then breeding too. We want to keep breeding down to a minimum so we don't create more animals in our city that are looking for homes.
I'm going to leave you with actually a text we got from someone who's adopted from Animal Services.
Awesome.
Maureen texted saying they adopted Salty from Animal Services. I don't know if you remember Salty last summer. He's the absolute best pet, so chill, but so happy. When I come home from work, his tail is flying, being happy to see me. We took him for activity training in the fall, and even the trainers loved him. Best dog ever. Thank you so much, Animal Services.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much both for joining us here. And thanks for all the work you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
That's Jennifer Harrower, the acting
We didn't
manager.
plan that.
It's a Jennifer thing, right? That's Jennifer Harrower is acting manager of Animal Services, and Jennifer Medicott, community relations coordinator. They're both with the City of Winnipeg Animal Services Agency, and we were also joined by now we said so many names. It's Ronald the dog, who is available for adoption, along with many other dogs you just heard of. You can just go to the City of Winnipeg to learn more. That's cityofwinnipeg.ca.
I'm just walking my dog here in High Park by Grenadier Pond. This is a little spot where we go when things are painful, even when it gets cold. There is history in this place, memories we're trying to change. Before this, it wasn't the two of us, there were 6 of us every week. Dogs and kid running around, and I thought that this was my family. But sometimes in life you get betrayed, sometimes you have to start again. Gotta sing my own songs, find some new places to belong, 'cause it's not here anymore. It's no place I've been before. I've gotta sing my own songs, gotta write everything that's wrong.
That's High Park by Andrew Spice, and that's some actually new music from Toronto's Andrew Spice. You can probably guess he's from Toronto there, talking about High Park. Spice actually says the new song comes out of a breakup, but it's really a love letter to Toronto and, of course, his dog. Time now is 12:57. Thanks again for everyone who called, and I already miss Ronald. He actually fell asleep almost for a hot moment just at the end of the interview there. He's such a sweetie pie. He definitely deserves a lovely home. And making themselves a home here in the studio right now is Faith, who is a human, and they are here to tell us about what's going on Up to Speed this afternoon. Hello.
I think I'm a human. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Corey, what does it feel like to be shortlisted for an Academy Award nomination?
I wouldn't know.
I don't know either, because I have never received such a thing. But we will hear from a Winnipeg filmmaker who's living in that very world. Matthew Rankin joins us in studio coming up at 5:05 to talk about his film Universal Language, which, by the way, premieres in Winnipeg tomorrow.
Exciting.
But we'll get a preview of it this afternoon.
We were watching the Oscar nominations today roll in, and we were like, come on, Matthew Rankin, come on, Matthew Rankin. But fell just short of the nomination.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did not get it, but we'll hear about how he's managing before, because he spoke with us yesterday.
Still a super interesting, successful movie, so happy to hear about it. Thank you very much, Faith.
Thank you.
That is Faith Fundal. They're hosting Up to Speed this afternoon from 3 to 6. Well, that is a wrap for the Thursday edition of Radio Noon. And thanks so much to everyone who helped put together today's show. May McKillop, Sierra Sanders, Wendy Parker, and Travis Peterson. And thanks again to Ronald. I don't think I'm going to get him out of my mind. I'm Corey Funk. Good to be with you. CBC Radio 1 is what you're listening to, and Quirks and Quarks is next. Have a good one. Adopt a dog.